If you practice meditation consistently over time, so that the practice of meditation becomes natural in a sense. In other words, it's like riding a bike. You know, when you first got on a bike, you know, you were awkward, you had to think about what to do, you know, like that. And you might go through a period of time where you feel frustrated because, you know, other people are riding their bikes and you still have training wheels, or you still have to put your foot down, like that. So you go through all that, right? But you have this intention, I want to ride this bike. Eventually you find balance. Eventually what happens is that you discover, you know, by experimenting back and forth, there comes a time when there is this sense of some balance here, that once I'm aware of that and I have enough speed, now the bike is being ridden. The same thing is true with meditation. If you practice meditation the way it's meant to be done, and you pay attention to the techniques, you pay attention to your posture, you pay attention to being grounded, you pay attention to focusing on the breath, you pay attention to letting the body relax, you pay attention to letting the mind calm down, which will all happen just by staying with the breath, right? Staying relaxed, not moving, staying with the breath. This will all happen over time. In the beginning, when you first sit to meditate, it's very important to understand you will be being present to the activity of your mind in a way that you may have never been aware of it before. And that may not be a fun experience to watch your mind just flitter around, to watch your mind race, to feel the restlessness of your body because you're so not used to sitting still. In the beginning, that's what it is. And unfortunately, a lot of people think, oh, that's not for me. I'm not going to spend time every day torturing myself like this. Well, that's just because you don't understand, or you really don't have the proper setup, or you don't have a guidance of a teacher, whatever the case may be. But if you're serious about this, if you really intend to experience meditation, if you really intend to have meditation provide the possibility of experiencing what they call enlightenment, or have meditation provide the experience of the possibility of what they call being awake, waking up, being awake. If you're really interested in that, this is a tool, but you have to learn to use the tool. Like any tool, you have to learn to use the tool. You know, somebody who learns to use a hammer, for example, in the beginning, it may be awkward, you know, but after working with a hammer for years, you look at an experienced carpenter, they don't have to look at the hammer anymore. You know what I mean? They can drive a nail. It's amazing how accurate they are, right? Yeah. Same thing is true with meditation, right? That if you stay with this and you study this and you study the teachings that go along with this, and you do it with the consistency that's necessary to counteract your conditioning, to counteract your tendency to be agitated, to counteract your tendency to be frustrated, to counteract your tendency to be impatient. So if you sit with it, if you stay with it over time, and you understand this is all a natural process that's going to occur. Over time, your ability to meditate will develop in such a way where you'll be able to sit, and the brain will have learned about meditation. You'll be able to sit, and soon as you sit in this posture and ground yourself and focus, you've been doing this long enough now that you don't have to pay attention to all the details anymore. You simply sit, and when you simply sit and you sit in the correct posture and you're grounded, and you begin paying attention to the breath, and over time, as you're doing this, you develop the ability to slow down the breath. More quiet breathing, softer breathing, so that you're really entering more stillness, more stillness. And if you do this over time, eventually what will occur is that there will be a possibility of opening the focus that you've been using to pay attention to the breath, practicing holding it there so that you can be aware of attention. And at some point, the possibility will exist to open that focus up so that you're aware of the breath, but now the awareness is opening up fully. And if you've been doing this long enough, you will start to experience a spaciousness, a stillness, an emptiness. You'll start to experience that this emptiness, this awareness, that the body is in this emptiness, and you're sitting, and you're aware of this emptiness. And then if you stay with that, this now becomes refreshing. This is purifying. You begin to get downloads. You begin to become aware of things that have always been here, but you haven't seen them, because now the space is open. The space is clean and clear enough that you can now see things as they are. And eventually, in this awareness of the space, eventually what will happen if you stay with this and you're sincere and earnest, that the you who is aware of the emptiness and the emptiness merge. Now there's just the emptiness. The you that you thought was the you that's meditating is now merged with the emptiness. This is called waking up. Awareness has now become aware of itself. It was always aware of itself, but your attention now has been moved out of its common way of paying attention to the world. It's moved out of that and fallen back into its source. And when that occurs, awareness is aware of itself. That's waking up. Now you're awake to the truth. Now you know who you are because you've experienced being who you are directly. And so this is a game changer. This is a transformation. This is a transcendental experience, right? Transcendental meaning that you're transcending, you're transcending the material reality. You're transcending the conceptual understanding of yourself. You're transcending your self-image. You're transcending your self-concept. And it's not that all of that will disappear. A lot of people, when they have this experience, become afraid that when that occurs, that they'll go crazy or you'll forget who you are. Your personality will disappear, and then you'll be lost in space, so to speak. But the reality of it is this transcendental experience is an experience in which, while on the one hand, you know you're not the personality in the physical body anymore, but at the same time, you know you are the body and the personality, because you discover that the body and the personality are nothing other than aspects of consciousness itself. So this is the process of recognizing reality as it is. And when this occurs, when you have this awakening, or you have this foretaste, or you have this opening up in which you experience the perfection of the truth, the perfection of reality, it's an experience that's often called blissful because you're removed from all of the stress factors. You're removed from the existence of a body and a personality that experience things happening to you. You're removed from that. And so there's no problems anymore. There's no trouble anymore. There's no upset anymore. There's no stress anymore. You're being the space of life itself. You're being life itself. This is all non-conceptual, so it's not what I'm saying, it's what I'm saying is pointing to here, right? It's all non-conceptual. But then the personality comes back into focus, and the personality becomes what you identify with. right? And then at that point, a lot of people say, oh, wow, how do I get that back, right? I had that experience, you know. I want to be in that experience all the time because it's what I always wanted. It had all the qualities that I've always wanted to experience in my life. Peace, satisfaction, happiness, well-being, perfection. Everything seemed perfect. And this perfection wasn't the old style perfection, no. This perfection is the perfection of everything being exactly the way it is and exactly the way it's not. That's the perfection that gets experienced here. So when it occurs that this has left and you're back in the personality, and now there's this real desire, this real interest in, you know, how do I get back? What happened? How did I come back? I didn't want to come back. I wanted to stay in that bliss. This is part of the natural process. It's just as natural as a seed growing. It's just as natural as a flower blooming, okay? That if you were to look in slow motion at a flower blooming or a tree blossoming its leaves, right? If you were to look at it in slow motion, you would see a very gradual reality of that occurring, right? In the same way, your consciousness is opening up like a flower opening up. That's why they use the lotus as a representation of enlightenment, right? So it's opening up. As it's opening up, there will be a fluctuation back and forth where you will experience being in the personality cut off from the awareness, and then other moments, brief moments of awareness in which you're transcending the personality and experiencing this sense of freedom and relief. And then something triggers you, something stimulates your brain, stimulates your mind, and pulls you back into the experience of being the contraction, being the physical body, being the personality, right? During this time, it's really important to have support, right? Because you can go through some uncomfortable spaces there. And during this time, what may happen is you may start to experience material from your past coming up, emotional trauma, material from your past coming up, right, to be released. So there's nothing to be afraid of. You can rest in awareness, you can allow the body to relax, and you can let these experiences come up and be expressed. So you may experience crying, you may experience laughing. All kinds of releases may occur during the experience of meditation. And again, it's important to have guidance as you deal with those experiences so you know you're not going crazy and this is actually a good thing that's happening, okay? Now, given that I'm a psychologist, and a lot of psychologists now are integrating non-dual understanding with psychotherapy, that this is an important part of the process because as material's coming up, okay, you may need to have the expertise and the insight of somebody who's trained in dealing with these mental states, yeah, to help you get through it, right? And so it's good to have a psychotherapeutic process after you have this awakening, right? So you can start working on, you can start paying attention to the shadow, what they call the shadow, which means all of the stuff about you and your personality that you're really not aware of, right? That's been having a negative effect on you in your life. They call that the shadow. You're not aware of a lot of that. That's why when you go to psychotherapy, part of the psychotherapist's job is to help you to uncover. It's an uncovering process. Uncover what's going on with you that you didn't see, that you weren't aware of. So you can start to understand your own mind. You can start to understand how your personality works. You can start to understand your conditioning. You can start to understand the patterns of behavior that play and all the rest of it. So this is an important part of it, to have the support and the guidance as far as that is concerned. And then over time, consistency of awareness begins to occur. You begin to experience that even while I am identifying myself as a personality, now watch, even while I am identifying myself as a personality, you see now I am choosing to identify myself with a personality. I'm not stuck being one anymore, right? That's not all I knew myself to be. Now I know myself to be that which is beyond limitation. And I choose to identify myself as a personality so that I can continue in this world, in this time-space reality, right? But now, as I continue to be this personality and continue to identify with this body, I choose to identify with this body and this personality, and now I'm aware of awareness as my true nature. And so now there is a process that occurs where the fact that my awareness is now consistently available, is consistently present, it's aware of itself. Now that that process has occurred, there is a process in which the personality begins to reconfigure, begins to reorient, to reshape itself to start to fit the reality that is present now. This is natural. This is a natural process. This is what I mean when I say that when you're awake, when you've established yourself as awakeness, when you've established yourself as the awareness that is your natural state, that just in the process of living your life, the problems you had, the suffering you were experiencing, the difficulties you had, the things you were coping with and putting up with and trying to change, clear up in the process of living itself. You're not doing anything. This is why I have said in previous talks, don't change. You know, don't put legs on the snake. Don't try and outdo your consciousness. Don't try, you see, the personality is a self-improvement entity, right? So right away, it starts to want to deal with this as a self-improvement project. You know, I am going to practice more. I'm going to meditate harder. I'm going to read more books, right? But that's the personality's way of dealing with everything. The discovery of your true nature is a different experience, right? Because with the presence of your true nature, the awareness itself has an effect on the personality in a natural way, whereas you live and you deal with the challenges of life around you, right? That the awareness now is aware and awake of the personality's dysfunction. It sees its dysfunction. It sees how its dysfunction is causing suffering, right? Just the fact that that's being seen now has who you're being, which is now who you really are, right? Just the fact that that's being seen now has who you're being, which is now who you really are. Lose interest in those patterns. Not be interested in continuing to do what doesn't work anymore. Because now you see very clearly that I'm hurting myself. I'm hurting myself by doing these patterns. I'm hurting other people by doing these patterns. I'm causing a life of suffering. I'm causing anxiety and depression. Or worse, maybe even causing addiction, right? By suffering under the stress of it all and feeling the need to get some relief somehow. And so, you know, I take medication to get relief, or I smoke some pot, or I drink some alcohol, or I do whatever. Now, even that's not wrong and bad, and even that's just part of the process, right? So and again, if that can be related to, with support of a group, a community that's involved in this process, and with the support of a teacher or a guide, right, that you can get through all that. And if you stay tuned, if you stay as the awareness, if you maintain a commitment to be who you really are, over time, all of these unworkable ways of being will start to fall away. You know, they'll just fall away. They'll no longer be relevant. It will be evident to you at some point that you're capable of being with whatever happens, which means you don't have to drug yourself, you don't have to medicate, you don't have to run away, you don't have to become obsessed with activities to distract yourself from your experience. You can be present to whatever happens now. And when that's the case, when you experience your ability to be with life, then the need to run or change anything falls away. And all of the addictive patterns of behavior fall away. And you start being able to experience a natural existence, an existence in which you and life are getting along well, an existence in which you stop expecting life to be different than it is. So there is a flow state that occurs. You know, there's a state in which you and life are moving together, happening as one thing happening, right? This is the experience that's spoken about in the Advaita Vedanta teachings when they say in the one statement, right? They say Sat Chit Ananda. Existence, I exist. I am consciousness, I am happy. Sat Chit Ananda is what they say. And this is the experience that is being had.